You're listening to Binjang 91.5, and it's now time for Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Good afternoon, Tony. Good to see you in the virtual sense once again for the day.
Well, it's always good to see you, one way or another.
I'll have to send you a photo, Tony, just to put in the studio so you don't miss the look of me too much.
Oh, my imagination's good enough. Don't worry about it. Now, Twitch is the world's most popular streaming site, and it's decided to ban bums and underboobs. So the big question is, what's underboob, Matthew?
Well, the problem with Twitch...
Oh, no, sorry. It says here, this is about saying cleavage is allowed, so I got off track.
Cleavage is allowed, underboobs and bums not allowed. And Twitch is the world's most popular streaming site. It's not one that maybe a lot of people have heard of, but obviously the most popular streaming site in the world. There's some probably younger people out there that are heavily into it. 15 million daily users. In fact, recently there was one game that had 4 million people streaming at the same time. So it's very popular with a certain group of people. And some people, to try and get more subscribers to their particular component or site on Twitch, have been starting to show other things besides their gaming skills. So for example, they might show parts of their body. And that's been great for those subscribers to get more subscribers or for those users to get more subscribers. But obviously it's not great when kids are saying to their parents they're using Twitch and then their parents walk in and see naked bodies on the screen. So Twitch has gotten to the point where they said immediately we're allowing no bottoms to be seen, we're allowing cleavage but no nipples to be seen. We want this to be a gaming site, not a pseudo porn site. I think that's a good thing. Obviously there are porn sites out there and you need to be over 18 to go and look at those sites. Twitch should be for games, and I think this is a good move with more and more people at home using sites like Twitch. Then let's make sure that people are using it in a safe way. So a good move by Twitch.
Yeah, it is. Now, what's this thing about a conspiracy between the New Zealand lockdown and the 5G rollout being unraveled?
Gee, the 5G network's getting a bad rap during this pandemic, isn't it? Last week we spoke about some arson attacks in the UK around 5G towers because people were convinced that 5G was spreading the coronavirus. And obviously that's ridiculous in terms of the actual concept of it. But this one here, this latest conspiracy, which has been shared around social media and has been shared, I think, 51,000 times, one of the sites was shared, it's talking about the reason that New Zealand locked down the entire country was not to stop the spread of COVID-19, but it was in fact to allow them time to roll out the entire 5G network. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but
I thought it was to protect the sheep.
Well, it may be to protect the sheep as well. I won't go any further with that one, thanks, Tony. But effectively, one of the websites out there said, well, it sounds ridiculous, but let's go further and actually investigate this and see if we can put some sort of credibility about how ridiculous this is. And so they went and did some further research, and they found that the 5G towers started the rollout, or the rollout of 5G towers started back in August 2019, way before we'd ever heard of COVID-19, way back when our main discussion points were probably drought and bushfires in this country anyway. So COVID-19 wasn't even thought of back then. And that rollout started. There's a planning process to go through. There's people that have to get approvals. Then the construction has to occur. All those things. And they're continuing on as normal, except what they've talked about in New Zealand is that the 5G rollout will actually be slowed down because the pandemic means that there are fewer workers available, both from the approval process and actually the construction process. So if anything, you'll actually see the 5G network slowed down because of the pandemic. Not a great chance for people to be indoors, hidden away, while the 5G network is rolled out really quickly. So again, it sounds ridiculous, and there's some data to back up just how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. Now, here's the next topic that really is the thing that might shake things after the coronavirus is finished with, and that's how we'll use Apple and Google's coronavirus tracking tool. It's got greater implications, hasn't it?
It does, and this is something that's actually a collaboration between Apple and Google, which is not something you see very often. And in very simple terms, and there's a lot of detail to come yet, but in very simple terms, the way this works is if I'm near you and I've got my phone in my pocket, obviously, and you've got your phone in your pocket, then the two phones exchange via Bluetooth the two phones exchange a token. And all that token does is says that this phone has been near this other phone. It doesn't exchange private information about you and I. And then at some later point in time, let's say you find out that you've got COVID-19, you can actually register on an app on your phone to say, yes, I've now got COVID-19. Every phone that your phone came near over the last 2 weeks is automatically notified to say that in the last 2 weeks, you've been near someone with COVID-19. It doesn't tell you who, it doesn't tell you any details about that particular interaction. You just know that you've been near someone with COVID-19. So the concept sounds great. Again, a lot of detail to come, a lot of detail in particular in the privacy space there. If someone's got COVID-19, they may not necessarily want everyone knowing they've got it. So keeping the credentials private is really important there. But again, I like the idea that Apple and Google are working together to try and stop the spread of COVID-19. And I think the technology is there to use it. Let's see how we go as humans using the technology in the right way.
Yeah, I think the ends justify the means in this particular case.
I think you're right in this case.
Yeah, but it will certainly stimulate a lot of debate. Now, online gaming is getting a big boost from the pandemic, which is absolutely no surprise. And experts say it's just the beginning. So it's going to get be a bigger industry than what it is now. Yeah,
you're absolutely spot on. To give you an idea, so there was Twitch we mentioned before. 1.2 billion hours of content was consumed on Twitch in March alone. Now, these are huge numbers, and the increase is definitely there. So a lot of the online games that probably teenagers and people into their early 20s, and mainly males, played, a lot of those online games now suddenly with parents home with their kids, with brothers and sisters sitting there together, they're sitting around home saying, what do we do? New South Wales is in school holidays at the moment, so they're not doing some online learning with their school. So online gaming is going to explode. And again, this is one of those things that I think will be ongoing. Once we return to whatever normal looks like, I think this gaming industry will be something that has changed forever, because once people get the hang of it, they start to play some games they like, they really enjoy what they're doing, then getting them back out in the real world outside will be a bit of a problem, I think. And the obesity issue we've seen around the world in the last couple of decades, I think will get worse as more and more people will sit on their couch and play these games. And, it's already a $100 billion global industry, but it won't take long for this pandemic to turn that $100 billion into, who knows, a $200 billion global industry.
Yeah, and it will help the economy one way or another too, I suppose, because all the developers out there will be booming and finding new jobs for people.
Yeah, look, I was actually quite hopeful. My son's home from university at the moment. My son's a teenager, his first year at university, and yesterday he went out and bought some Lego and actually started playing with Lego. I think he'd played so many online games, he was at the point where he was just about over them for a little while. So going back to something so physical and tactile as Lego, I thought was fantastic.
I think it is, actually. It's real 3D, isn't
it? It is. 3D in the real world.
Well, that's it. Now, the Federal Trade Commission in the United States has reported nearly $12 million stolen in coronavirus-related scams. Surprise, surprise, Matt.
Yeah, it is disappointing, isn't it? You've got something like this COVID-19 pandemic. The response pretty much around the world, it varies country to country, but pretty much the world has responded to try and beat this pandemic. But of course, there are people out there who just can't help themselves and try and take advantage of the vulnerable situation that we're in. So $12 million is the correct figure you've talked about there in terms of how much has been lost already. This is just in America. The average loss per person is about $500, and they're losing it in a whole range of ways. For example, people are seeing emails come through to say, here's a tablet, a substance, or some type of medicine, if you call it that will stop you getting the coronavirus. And typically they're just normal off-the-shelf medications that are purported to be able to stop the coronavirus, but there is no known vaccine or cure for the coronavirus at the moment. But what they're doing is they're charging ridiculous prices for typical off-the-shelf medicines. And again, people are preying on the fact that people are vulnerable at this stage. There are also things that are coming through for testing, cheap testing equipment, and people are paying money online for that testing equipment, and either the testing equipment doesn't turn up or when it does turn up, it really isn't able to test for the coronavirus. So again, it's one of those things that you've got to be skeptical all the time about things you see online, particularly emails you see coming through. But at this point in time, I would say to people, just be incredibly skeptical about anything you see and wait for some major news organisations maybe to come through with information about either testing equipment or cures or vaccines. And again, being a virus, I don't know that we'll see a cure per se, but a vaccine will come. But medical organisations are talking about maybe 12 to 18 months for a vaccine. So if you see something pop up in your inbox today that's saying, here's a vaccine for coronavirus, you probably should be pretty sceptical about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been listening to Binjang 91.5 and Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Keep on listening to the great music of Binjang. And it's back to the program right now.
Thanks, Tony.